Casting? Fail. Sweet. Branson, is that from you? Oh, okay. All right. Actually, is Luis going to be in here by any chance?
He's right next to me.
Oh, he is right next to you, and he's on the phone. That's some good con etiquette. All right. All right, so we're going to go through this. So for those that don't know, one of the things that we've been doing since the very first ShmooCon is going through, we kind of lay bare what it means to run this con, all the internals of the good things, the things that went well, the things that went badly, and there's multiple reasons why we do this. One, we do this because we run ShmooCon for the community, and there's other people in the community who may want to be running their own conference, and it's always a challenge. You're going to start running your own con. What does it take? How much money? What things go right? What things go wrong? And we provide this information because we want other people to start their own events, do their own thing, become productive, members of the community. And we feel like if we're going to learn these lessons, there's no reason for somebody else to have to learn them too. You can stand on our shoulders, learn from our mistakes, and then do the right thing. Secondarily, running a con is a trial of successes and failures. And when things go well, everyone likes us, and when they go badly, you tend to not like us. And we figure if we're transparent and at least show what we're doing to address anything that did go wrong, that hopefully you have some faith that we're trying to do the right thing and we have your best interest in mind. So this is not, we will take questions from the audience as we go forward, but part of this is getting it on film and on the internet for posterity. So I need to make it through all the slides so the information's there for other people later on down the road to come read it. So I apologize if I have to cut questions short or that kind of thing. Does that make sense? Nods. All right. How many people have been to Own the Con before? Large number, and you keep coming back. So you'll notice the slides are largely the same, at least the titles. We've added a few, but these were literally the same PowerPoint file that we started ShmooCon 1 Own the Con with, and we've just modified them over the years. 2. Oh, I guess ShmooCon 2. I can't count. It's hard. A number of years ago, I guess about 4 years ago, we formed a formal legal organization. We have an LLC, ShmooCon Logistics, that is kind of the entity at the front of the con. LLCs are funny critters, but for all intents and purposes, it's a proper legal entity. Still, the taxes rain down on the partners' heads on their personal taxes, so it's not like a C Corp or an S Corp that can file its own taxes independently. But on the flip side, things don't get double taxed. LLCs are really easy to run. You don't have to, there's not the formality that you have with corporations, and there's specifically not the formality with a 501c3. We could do this as a 501c3, but honest to God, how many people, I know a number of people in the room have been involved in 501c3s, and some people say, oh, well, you can make them run okay and whatnot. I've seen a lot of them go off the rails, and it's a lot of work, and we just signed a few papers. I think we registered through like the company store or something like that, and that was that.
About 5 minutes.
It was about 5 minutes. 5 minutes you can form yourself an LLC. I challenge you to form a 501c3 in 5 minutes. Right, a legal one. The organizational structure is still very much the same. For those that don't know, we were walking down the hallway the other day, and someone's like, there's the con organizer and his wife. I'm like, uh-oh. No one's called me the wife before.
You have longer hair.
I do have longer hair than she does, yes. So anyway, Heidi's really the person that kind of, when no one else is thinking about ShmooCon, she's thinking about ShmooCon throughout the entire year, doing all the, keeping the train on the rails, or whatever analogy you want to use. She is the person of last resort for all questions. She is the helm of ShmooCon Logistics LLC, so she's really the conference organizer. I get to be the guy who comes up, yeah. Go Heidi. I'm just a talking head, and there's obviously a huge supporting cast of people. The way that we run things is there's discrete groups from speaker selection, John Kaus and Ben Laurie leading up speaker selection, and then there's registration, and then there's labs, Louise and Ken and that whole crew. Everyone, gets kind of divided into their groups. We work most things out in email, even with our vendors and everyone else. We do the vast majority of our communication via email. We very rarely have to pick up the phone. This year there were a few more phone calls than in years past, but for the most part, it's all done in email. There's not a lot of formality. We don't meet in IRC and have big chats. There aren't weekly meetings. There's nothing like that. And I think part of why we've I think been lucky in that regard is starting out as a cohesive semi-cohesive group of the Shmoo group. We all knew each other. We kind of knew most of each other's little nuances of how we worked, and we could fall into this realm. Okay, you're going to do this, I can trust you. You're going to do this, and I can trust you. I think other cons tend to have more of a formality about them when they get started, if for no other reason that they haven't done anything together as a group. We were used to working together, and it's allowed us to kind of continue to be casual. One of the side benefits is the first year we had people sleeping in our house for like a week ahead of time, getting ready, and everyone was freaking out. And this year was like Tuesday night, and it was just me and Heidi and the kids. You know, like nobody was even at the house yet. So Ken was there for a day, but then he went down and got drunk in DC, so we didn't see him for a few days. Conference dates and venue. So we've been at the Marriott since day one. We originally started in the basement. They've upgraded us to this fancy new, bigger facility here. The dates we pick, there's a lot of reasons, not the least of which is, you know, since a lot of this stuff coalesces around our house and our lives, you know, we make a decision of what's good for us. We make a decision what's good for the group, what works for all the, you know, the volunteers, and then we also try not to conflict with other security cons. And I know there's other security con organizers here. You know, we got Sector represented. There's other cons that are here that are represented, and it's hard to find a time to have a conference when there isn't another security conference going on. You know, 10 years ago, you didn't have that issue. Now, every day of the year, there's probably a security conference somewhere in the world where someone's like, oh, I wanted to go to that one, but I have to be at this one. In DC last week alone, there was a DoD cybercrime, there was Black Hat Federal, and there was some other invite-only thing that was going on Monday, you know? So there are a lot of people going to security conferences just in DC in the last 2 weeks. You know, so that part of the equation, I mean, we stay away from the big boys, but, you know, reaches... Sort of, yeah, but we reach a point where it's like whatever the hotel has available and whatever works for our personal lives is probably going to be what the ShmooCon date is. So a question we get asked is, you know, size. You know, 1,500 people, give or take. Why do you choose that size? You know, and there's a wide variety of reasons. I'll graphically show a few of those reasons right now. For weeks, if not months ahead of the conference, our house is overtaken with ShmooCon stuff. I mean, besides the fact that volunteers are all putting in their hours ahead of time and working on things, everyone's grinding it out. You know, the big impact personally to us is that we have to store things, you know. This is my garage, which obviously wasn't used for storing a car, but instead it was 107 boxes of bags that got delivered by freight by a truck that didn't have a lift gate in the middle of the afternoon. So we unloaded each box by hand for the third year in a row and toted them across my driveway and piled them neatly in my garage. Then one of the vendors shipped some of their gear in containers like those, and that was it. That was my entire garage. That was full up there. So
The other half of the garage is filled with a dead Volvo.
yeah, the other half of the garage is filled with my Volvo. For those that have been following the Volvo ordeal for the last 3 years, it looks exactly the same. It's still on blocks, and it's now just covered in crap and like slowly dissolving into the floor. So, so that's a garage. You think, oh, it's a garage. That's no big deal. This is the downstairs television room in my house. It's very difficult to watch the television at this point, and this is about a week and a half before the con. You know, this is what 1,500 people does to our lives from a physical perspective. And you think about the impact that it has on all the ShmooCon volunteers and what it means, and you know, and you can appreciate what has to go on to run a con, a volunteer-run con like DEF CON, right? I mean, they're bigger than us by 4 times, and the people, they obviously have a little more infrastructure to help them out, but they've got the impact on the people and their time and that kind of thing. It's tough to run a con. It takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of physical space. So between the constraints with the hotel, the constraints with the volunteers' time, and the constraints of, frankly, I'm not going to build an addition to hold cardboard boxes for 2 months. We think it's a good size, and again, we welcome feedback on the size issue. But it seems, people every year say, "Hey, it feels like a small con," and I'm glad that we're able to pull off 1,500 people feeling like a small con. So, how do people just generally too small, too big, just about right? About right. Perfect. All right, that's good. Maybe we'll get. Put an addition on. Sir, your ticket will be very expensive next year. I'll have you in touch with my general contractor. If anyone wants the really special ticket next year, that's actually not a bad idea. We'll just put one up, $50,000, the ShmooCon edition ticket. Speaker selection, so the speaker submissions, we received 128 this year, which is up about 14%. Again, we used OpenConf. There was no cat-induced deletions of the comment database this year, which was kind of nice. Yay. Yeah? Oh, what's OpenConf? OpenConf is a open source conference management system for handling paper submissions. It's very much, yeah, it's very much an academic paper submission system. It's designed for like blind reviewing and that kind of thing. And we kind of go in and gut it for our purposes because we don't really want to blindly review. We're not necessarily here for academic integrity so much as put it on a con that meets the community's needs. But it does allow you to assign papers to reviewers and then very quickly go through and figure out what the high-ranking ones, the low-ranking ones, and all that kind of thing are. We did have one of our cats did kill one of the TF2 boxes the other day, though. It was a new kitten, and it was his initiation, so we had to repair that box. So the cats are still wreaking havoc in the Potter House. There was a small but very dedicated selection committee. People put a lot of eyes on these talks this year, which was great. And I think that overall we had a really good group of talks that were submitted and a really good group of talks that ended up being selected. One nice thing about using OpenConf versus some of the other like more ad hoc, using an Excel spreadsheet or email, is it kind of gives us one, uniform way to go and look through all the information on the conferences. And so we had somebody go through and do some kind of analysis from the past 3 years, looking at the submissions that have come in. And one of the first things they did was look at on a just looking at buzzwords. What buzzwords were popular, over time, which ones are popular now. A few years ago, VoIP was mentioned more often than anything else, if you can believe that, in the submissions. That's not necessarily saying we accepted a lot of VoIP talks, but from a submissions perspective, in 2008, I guess, we saw a whole bunch of VoIP submissions. That VoIP just fell to the floor, and the last 2 years, web has been the big kind of trending term that people are using. Now, the talk may not be necessarily totally about web-based stuff, but the term itself has popped up over and over and over in almost every talk this year. The types of talks that were submitted, we kind of put them into 4 different buckets: hardware-based, offensive, defensive, and forensics. That's my phone. That's, wow, no. Con etiquette, yeah. The speaker had his phone turned on. He's a real jerk. We're not a really hardware-heavy con, as far as what gets submitted. We only saw 12 talks this year. We saw 5 the previous 2 years. So really, that percentage is very small. But we did actually accept a number of the hardware talks. Yeah. If you want to, if you do hardware stuff, it turns out it's kind of a green field here. There's a big space to submit hardware talks. We see more. I thought historically, one of the reasons that we did this is because I thought we had historically been more on the defensive side and then offensive. People are having more things of ways to protect than break. But it turns out that over the years, we on average have seen 60% more talks on breaking things than defending them. Which was kind of surprising because this con didn't strike me as kind of an offensive con, but we do get a lot of talks in that arena.
Submissions too, it's not exceptions.
Yeah, this is submissions, not exceptions. This is just what people are pouring into us. And the largest percentage, not a majority, but the largest percentage of talks was kind of in the forensics, looking through and understanding technology kind of realm. It really wasn't offensive or defensive. It was more digging into things and understanding what's going on. One thing that was interesting to me, 25 female authors total as part of a submitted talk over the last 3 years. Okay, so they were either primary or they were in a group of people, kind of thing. But there was only 25 female authors out of, I think.
It was like 100. So 100 average each year.
Yeah, about 100 average each year. So you figure out a 300-ish. 250 people, some overlap, 25 of them are female. We're going to post more detailed information. We have a lot more detailed analysis. We'll make pretty graphs and stuff. And we'll try to maintain this year over year. And hopefully, I'd like to see other cons, provide similar statistics if they can. I know academic conferences are reasonably good at, providing accepted statistics and things of that nature. But I'm not sure as a community, the kind of more informal conferences like we have in the security community necessarily report out these statistics. So I really, if there are other con organizers here, we'd really love to see. I mean, I know that there's a little tenuous of, letting too much information out about it, but this kind of high-level stuff is very anonymous, and I think it helps everyone understand what the trends are. How to hack selection. People always ask, how do I, get selected? What's the best way? I will tell you first and foremost that running this conference is an exercise in reading comprehension. Okay. I kid you not. Like the number of emails I get where it's clear that people haven't really passed like 6th grade reading comprehension are astronomical. They'll ask a question about something on the webpage where it's explained like in the next sentence on the webpage. Or like you couldn't read the next sentence. You had to like stop and write me an email to. It's infuriating because we have a lot of things that we have to do, and responding to random emails takes time. And on the selection committee perspective, when we get submissions that don't even follow the core structure of here's the information we want, and we're not going to take a lot of time to try to unscrew your screw up. We'll look through it and see if there are merits. But honestly, it's on the person submitting to read it. We're pretty clear. Include the following 5 things. Put